the Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers book that has also been published in Slovenia. And everybody who's read that book is surely familiar with the name Bob Cohen. If you're not familiar with that name, you must be by now familiar with the name Bhahmatirtha Prabhu, aka Bob Cohen. And we had the fortune of hosting Prabhu with us. His Grace spent some time with Srila Prabhupada and later on in the States, asking questions that have been later on published in this book. So what are we going to hear tonight is everything that was not published in here, all the background, how did this Leela happen. So as we did earlier, as a welcome gesture for Mataji Bhakti, I'm going to invite everybody to, on ready, steady, go, welcome His Grace Bhahmatirtha Prabhu with a loud Haribol. Ready, steady? And also everybody was already invited to bring this book with you if anybody wants. Bhahmatirtha Prabhu today will be signing the books after the speech, so if you are... Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So it's a big honor to be here in probably the most beautiful place I've ever seen, Slovenia. I went up to see Kunda. His mother took me to see the castle in Bled, where we go and visit. And we stopped at Indian Gayatri at this 500-year-old church. In America, anything 500 years old, there's only one building 500 years old, and it's a big tourist attraction, and it's a nothing. And here, everything is so old, and every town I went to here, what is the main building in each town? Always the church. In America, it's always the bank. For example, when the terrorists want to attack America at its soul, what did they attack? The Trade Center. They want to get the bank. So you can judge a society by its architecture. You can judge what does a society value. I came here from Rome, and in Rome they valued, the Vatican and the art, and that's the main center. Of course, they also had the Colosseum. And I learned when I was at the Colosseum where the word arena comes from. You know the word arena? Like a sports arena? Because the town I come from in Florida, it has a very successful American football and basketball team at the college. So everyone is very enthusiastic. The town is 100,000 people and the stadium holds 100,000. So it's the main arena. So I went to the Colosseum. And in the Colosseum, I was reminded of the town I'm coming from in Florida. Because in those days, everyone went to the Colosseum to see all the fighting. And the word arena, I learned, comes from the Italian word harina, which is a word for sand. Because they would cover the bottom of the Colosseum with sand in the Roman times 2,000 years ago to absorb all the blood. So where I'm coming from in Florida, they don't actually have the blood, but they bump into each other a lot, and the audience gets excited when someone bumps hard. So not much difference. So I was maybe 19 years old and 18 years old, and I wanted to see another culture. When I was living, just like in Slovenia, I wanted to tour and learn the culture and learn about the place. What do people think? How do they react? Even when Prabhupada came to America, the first 6 months, he sat in Butler, Pennsylvania to learn the culture. What do people think? How do they act? He studied very carefully, and then he made his move. But he didn't do his work right away. He sat and observed. So in 1968, American culture was in quite disarray. There was student protests against the Vietnam War. Now there's not much protest against Iraq war because we don't have a draft. But in the 60s, there was a draft. So everybody had to do military service. And so therefore there was major protests against the war. And now at the campus is a little protest, but there's a draft. I assure you there'll be big protests against the idiot who runs America now. But and Prabhupada would comment like that. When there was a leader who was a real idiot, Prabhupada did not mind saying so. And somebody really did crazy things. So in 1968, I went to New York City and I saw the devotees chanting on the street. And I was thinking, why? Maybe 67 or 68. And I looked and I said, these devotees are either completely outside this material body, outside the body. I was thinking, they're just detached, renounced, or they're doing theatrics. They're like theater players. Because they were dressed funny, with funny heads. In those days, on the left foot was a green sock, on the right foot was a red sock. The sandals didn't match. But they looked to be quite content. So I was curious, what's going on here? And I knew that had something to do with India. And since I was a little boy, I was attracted to India. So I got a mantra card, and I lost it. Then I learned the mantra from a record album that came out that had Krišna on it. So I said, this chanting is nice, but what is this? And then I found a temple. I went to 2nd Avenue, and they had just moved. And unfortunately, in ISKCON, they had not yet invented the sign to put on the front door of the new address. That had not yet been invented. That was to come generations later. So they moved just down the street, but there was no sign. So then months later, I found a new location. So I went there, and they moved again. And again, it was before the sign was invented. There was a sign saying, this is the new address. Then I found them in Brooklyn. I went to the temple. And I said, boy, these people are weird, weird, weird. These are strange people indeed. But the incense smelled good. There was something there. So I said, okay, there's only one way to figure this out. I read Gita. Prabhupada's Gita had not yet been published. So I read Edgerton's Gita. I don't know if anybody had read that. His conclusion in his Gita was Tat Tvam Asi. Someone knows what that means? Tat Tvam Asi. Thou art that. That is the impersonalist slogan. Thou art that. So I read that, and I said, eh. And then I read Radha Krishna's Gita, which actually later on Prabhupada had said we could read with a bunch of commentary. And then there was one verse in the Gita, Api Chek Sudacharo, even if one commits the most abominable activities. Somebody know that verse? Somebody say, Vijay. Yeah. I'll let him do this in Albanian. Regard. Say? Yeah. And translate?
Even if one commits most abominable thing, if he has determination to serve Krishna, he is saintly person.
Now, would anybody here like to hear a mystical story?
Yes.
A mystical story. This is a true story. It's a true mystical story. There's a few mystical stories. This one's very mystical to me. So it's a mystical story. It all resolves around that verse. So I studied that verse in college. I was taking a course on Oriental philosophy. So I said to my professor, it was the only verse in all of Gita that somehow bothered me. Even though there's so many more important verses in the Gita. So I asked my professor, can you explain this? Professor John Colvin, can you explain this verse? And he said, no. It's obvious what it means, which is his way of saying he had no idea. Yeah, but I did write a paper and get an A on it, which meant he really had no idea. So, we'll get back to this verse later. Keep that in your mind and put it aside. We'll get back to the verse later. So I was thinking, the only way I'm going to know what the Gita's about, these weird people I met at the Krišna temple are real, is to go to India. And I wanted to go to India since I was a little boy. Somehow I wanted to go. So I think previous life, maybe I was a taxi driver or something, I don't know. So then I applied to join the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps is a program that still exists. Who here has heard of the Peace Corps? Who has not heard of the Peace Corps? And who doesn't know if they have heard of it or not heard of it? This way everyone can participate. Okay, we got everyone here. Okay. The Peace Corps is a program where American college graduates apply. And if the government accepts their application, and it's a little difficult, then the government will train us in a foreign language and send us overseas, often as teachers, to go in another culture, and we get paid the same thing that a teacher in another society would get. We live very simple. So I applied to the Peace Corps and asked to go to India. And I was accepted to go to India. And so I was sent to New Delhi to learn Hindi. Hindi and I was like 21 maybe. 21. So 21. So I was sent to go to New Delhi for training, and I wanted India. And the reason I wanted India is I wanted to understand the culture that brought us the Gita and what was behind it. What's the mystery of the Gita? How will I understand the Gita once I know that culture? And in New York in the 60s, every week some guru came from India, and the joke in the newspaper was a picture of the guru that came and what he was saying. There was this Ananda and that Ananda, and Baba this and Baba that. And they were coming because there was a lot of money and a lot of hippies who would listen to anybody saying anything. So, was Prabhupada different or not? I wanted to know. I hadn't met Prabhupada, but was Hare Krishna movement? I really didn't know who Prabhupada was. Was Hare Krishna movement different? Was the leader different? Or was it one of those? And some of these movements were quite popular at the time. This one guy, he started a movement and had 60 Rolls Royce cars. And he had a philosophy that you become transcendental through more sex. Another guru had a philosophy that if you press your eyeballs the right way, white light flash, and that white light would mean you're realized. And another one, if you chant chant a few words of the Gayatri mantra, you'll become peaceful, it's true. And many millions of people chanted a few words of the Gayatri mantra and got some peace, not much realization, but some peace. And so there were many coming. So how can you tell who's who? You know? So I said, if I go to India, maybe I'll find out. And I wanted to go to India. So then I went to India. When I got off the plane in India, it was a bad day. They had just enlarged the New Delhi airport, and a little rain had come, premature, and it was hot. And all these giant bugs had invaded the airport, such that when the flight attendant stepped off the plane onto the pavement, they didn't have the ramps then, she started screaming and yelling. And that was my introduction to India. The person who goes to India each week. But as soon as I stepped off the plane, I said, maybe I'm home. I actually felt that way. So then, I would go to temples. I'm telling you more about the Peace Corps. So the Peace Corps, we volunteer, and we get trained in the language, and then we get sent to a village to be, in my case, a teacher. And the pay is very small. It was a few hundred rupees a month. We have some Indian gentlemen here, they know. In 1971, a few hundred rupees a month was not very much money. Not very much. And I was very fortunately sent to a very, very remote place. So the Peace Corps would leave me alone. We were very anti-authoritarian then, coming from the kind of the war protesting movement. And so I would visit, get a chair? Yeah, make a chair for Lakshmimoni. Maybe until then somebody can get on all fours. No. So sit down, make yourself comfortable, make yourself at home. So in India, I would visit temples and mosques and ask them, do you chant Hare Krishna? Is it legitimate? And they would answer me, yes, 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 yes. I couldn't figure out if it was yes or no. I didn't know. Was it yes or was it no? And I would go up and I would ask people, when you go to the temple, why are you here? And they would answer me, in essence, for money. I want dowry, I want rain, but it was always something. I said, my God, I went all the way around the world, got what we used to call Delhi belly. You know what Delhi belly is? Delhi belly? When you drink the bad water. It's called Delhi belly. All this, and it's no different than America. It's just a business. It's not, it's a business. You go make a deal with God. It's like, go visit the temple, it's like you call up a credit card, and you want to place an order on the internet. You get your credit card, and you go on the internet, and you order your product, and then they send it to you. So going to the temple in India was like that. People go, and they give something to God, and then they wait for it to come back. It's like ordering on the internet. They didn't have internet then, but they had the same kind of thing. Then you could order by phone. So I was very disappointed. And but I went on with my teaching. And then I used to go take an overnight train to Calcutta to visit the devotees. Actually, to go get a milkshake. Anybody here from Bengal? Been to Bengal? Anybody been to Calcutta? You know New Market? Next to New Market, there's a very good shop. It's still there, Cavendish, for milkshakes. So I would take the overnight train to get a milkshake. No, not in Delhi, Calcutta. Yeah, I was in Delhi that I went to. I was stationed, our Indian guests will appreciate it, the most advanced, modern, well-run state in India. I was stationed in Bihar. Bihar sort of like, I hope there's no Biharis here. No Biharis? Okay. It's sort of like the joke of India, I think. Is that true? Bihar? Where are you from?
From South.
South. Oh, thank God you can say Bihar. Okay. But I liked it there. So I would take the overnight train to Calcutta, and then I ran into the devotees. And the devotees, and I would see the devotees at times, and I said, well, these are the people I saw in America. These are the people I learned the mantra from, Hare Krishna. So now I want to find out what's going on. And I went to the temple, and there was Prabhupada. This is before the conversation. This was November 1971. So I went to the temple, and I walked in, and Prabhupada, the same temple we have now, it's been there all this time, and on Albert Road. And I went into there, and the devotees, not many Western guests came. They said, you want to meet Prabhupada? I said, sure. So I walked in. So then Prabhupada says to me, so you have any question? So I asked him. I started off with a really stupid question. And I said, so, why are you not following the Buddha? That was really stupid. So, can anybody guess what Prabhupada's answer was? What did the Buddha say? He's not a Buddhist, so he's not going to respond. So what do you think the Buddha said? So I said, I remembered from that class on Oriental philosophy in college, where I heard the verse of Vichetsudacharo. I remember we studied Buddhism too. So I said, well, Prabhupada, the Buddha has 4 noble truths, or is it 8? Or is it 8-fold path and 4 truths, or 4-fold path and 8 truths? And that was translated to not to. So that devotee had actually lost his faith somehow. But what was more interesting is these devotees were arguing. What was even more interesting is Prabhupada's reaction. Now, Prabhupada knew, before I saw him, I'm sure he knew the devotees explained who he was. So here, I am being introduced as the guru, the pure devotee, and then people are arguing. You would think Prabhupada would hush them out of the room, because what impression would that make on me, that he knows everything and his disciples are arguing with each other and don't ask him? What impression would that make? And Prabhupada had no false ego. It didn't bother him. If they want to argue, they'll argue. You want to ask me a question, you ask me a question. Totally detached. Me, if I was the big guru and somebody else was arguing and a new guest came, I would be very embarrassed. Oh, go in, go in, go in. I don't want the guest to know that not everyone trusts me. Prabhupada had no, and I was noticed that there was no false ego. I was very impressed. He was sitting there. At first I was bewildered. They would argue. He's not bothered by this. So as soon as I left, I became vegetarian. I wanted to be vegetarian, and I had to go back to my teaching. So when I went back to the place where I do my teaching, I asked, there were 3 Americans together, and we pooled our bigger resources and had somebody help us in cooking. We didn't have much resources at all. And I said, where do you get the goat from? Because they would have goat. And so they took me to the shop. And the shop where they get the meat from has sticks in the ground. And on each stick there's a head of a goat. So when you want to order some meat, you pick the head you like. And they give you a piece of the body. I'm not exaggerating. And then they had a festival, so the local townspeople invited me to the festival at midnight. And they whisper in the goat's ear. Prabhupada talks about this, but I witnessed it. I'm going to kill you this life, now you can kill me next life. I said, this is crazy. This is crazy. So I became vegetarian very quickly. And I became very proud of being vegetarian. So nice, so good. So then, I went to Calcutta in February to get a visa to Nepal. And the Peace Corps wouldn't give me the visa because they know the reason I was going to Nepal. And it wasn't legal. And so the Peace Corps wouldn't give me my papers. And then, so I'm leaving the office and I ran into devotees on the street. And they say, there's a big festival in Mayapur, would you like to come? Now, 1 month before, the devotee Tamal Krishna Goswami had purchased a land. So there was, who here has been to Mayapur? Okay. Who has not been to Mayapur? Who doesn't know if they've been to Mayapur? Everyone who participated. Okay. And you know the Bhajan Kutir in Mayapur? That was the only building in Mayapur. There was a tent for men, a tent for women, and a pandal tent. You were not there at 72.
First year I was there was 74.
Yeah, then you had the long building. No. Yeah. Well, then Prabhupada, there was nothing. They just bought the land, which is rice paddies. And Gorpanima. Now, how many people go to Gorpanima every year? The whole Mayapur district. No, I heard the whole district, 1 million people. I would say the first year when I was there, a few hundred people maximum came, mostly village people and a few gentlemen from Calcutta. But hardly anyone came. And the war with India had just ended, and there was a massive food relief going on by ISKCON. They started feeding khichdi to the Bangladesh refugees, because we're right near the Bangladesh border. So the devotees in Calcutta invited me to come to a festival. I didn't know what a Mayapur was, but I said, sure, I can't go to Nepal anyway, so I'll go with you to the festival. So I hopped a train, and I always had a backpack with me of things I need, so I went to the festival. Then when I got there, I joined the food relief program, did my service. That was very significant, I was doing that service. We'll explain why later. I'm doing the service, and it's really interesting. There's nothing to eat except the khichdi, and the only thing you could buy was coconuts and lemons. There was nothing else. There was no shops, nothing. And it is and there was one guest at the festival who spoke English. You are looking at the one guest. And everyone was in about as an enthusiastic mood to preach as could be possible. The average age was maybe 22 or 23. There were some people that had been devotees for 6 years. They were extremely senior, maybe 5 years, very, very senior. And everyone wanted to preach, and there was one person to preach to. One. Not two. I wish there were two. And I didn't know who was senior and who had joined the day before, because they all looked alike. A shaved head and a bed sheet. And so they were lining up to get me, picking numbers, who gets him next. And then somebody said, would you like to see Prabhupada? And I said, yes, I'd like to see Prabhupada. So they took me to Bhajan Kutir. And then, this is not in the book. It wasn't recorded. Later, Shyama thought things were interesting and started recording. And so Prabhupada, what did he do? He started asking questions about me. What do you do? Who are you? Well, what's going on with you? I wish that part had been recorded because it's so sweet. Prabhupada was just asking, well, I'm working here, I'm doing this. He wanted to get to know me a little. And then after getting to know me, he said, so do you have any questions for me? And a thought hit me. Quite accidentally, I think, I stumbled upon a really good fortune. What does Krišna say in the Gita about approaching a guru? Somebody tell me. How do you approach a guru according to the Gita? Say louder. Humble way. What specific instructions?
Serve and ask questions.
Serve
And ask questions.
Yes, in a humble state of mind. Got it. So, I said, wow, I'm with this person who could be a bona fide guru. I don't know if he is. You know, after being in India, there was Baba this and Baba that. I met one disciple of some big Baba who was telling me his Baba wasn't so nice. And, you know, it gets very bewildering. And my name was Bob, so I used to do a Peace Corps. We used to do joking, so I was Baba. So we would even sort of make fun because there were so many of these people we knew were not real. But when Prabhupada's presence, and I'd seen him in Calcutta, I was kind of awestruck. So I said, okay, let me assume he's a bona fide guru. So the first thing I did is inquire submissively. Second thing I did was render service because they were doing the food relief. And I had volunteered to help with the food relief for the Bangladesh refugees. So approach a spiritual master, render service, and inquire submissively. I quite accidentally, hit the formula of the Gita. And what happens if you do those three things? What does the Gita say? He reveals the truth to you. So I quite accidentally, I assure you, hit the formula. And the formula works. We'll tell you a story about that a little later. I won't go on too long because I'm going to ask you questions, see what questions you have. So then, I'm sitting with Prabhupada. Now do you all remember I told you there was a mystical story? So now we get to the mystical story, for those that remember that. So I'm sitting with Prabhupada, and one of the first things Prabhupada says to me is he quotes Abhi Chetsudocharo in Sanskrit to me. Now I'd never heard Sanskrit in my life, I didn't know any Sanskrit other than Hare Krishna mantra. And it was obvious to Prabhupada from the conversation we had that wasn't recorded that I did not know Sanskrit. So it was very clear, I was not a scholar of Sanskrit. And so, Prabhupada quotes the verse, and then he turns to me and says something like, so you know what that means? And I knew that that was the only verse I had known in the whole Gita. Not that I had any verse memorized, but that was the one that had mystified me 2 or 3 years before in college. And I asked the professor, he didn't understand. And that was the first verse Prabhupada quoted to me, and he knew I knew what it was. He said, so you know this? And he said it in Sanskrit. So, now it didn't hit me how mystical it was then. It hit me how mystical it was the next day or 2 days later. I had another quite mystical experience. Any of you know Jamuna? Now every morning you hear Jamuna sing. She sings the prayers when we open the curtain. Yeah, she's singing every morning. So you all hear Jamuna sing every morning. Now, Jamuna was there as assisting Prabhupada, cooking other things. So, the story I'm telling now is there's one part in the perfect questions where I said, now I have to leave. And Prabhupada says, don't talk L-E-A-V-E, talk L-I-V-E, live. You all remember that part? In the perfect questions, you'll see it. It may come out slightly different in Slovenian. But in English, I said to Prabhupada, I have to leave. I'm going to tell you why I said that in a moment. And Prabhupada said to me, don't talk leave, L-E-E spelled it, talk live. And I'll get more to that in a moment. So the night before, I'm telling the story of how that happened. So that happened in the morning. The night before, I realized that Prabhupada was talking to me personally. I was no longer asking theoretical questions. It was involving me now. It was really easy to ask theoretical questions of the Guru. Well, what about this? What about Buddhism? What about this? It was talking about my life. and I was getting nervous. And then Jamuna came to me, and it was Gaur Purnima. So Gaur Purnima means full moon. And Jamuna is one of the nicest people I've ever met on the planet. So she comes up to me, and she has tears in her eyes. I can actually see it, and I'll never forget, she has tears in her eyes reflecting in the moonlight. And she says to me, you know, Prabhupada is giving you something special. I've never seen him give anybody. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. He said, he's giving you something special. I said, I've never seen anything like this. He really loves you. She's talking to me like this, how lucky I am. She says, how fortunate I am. And then I did something quite unmanly. I went into the rice field behind the pandal and just collapsed crying. I said, oh, this is too much for me. Jamuna, and she says something. But no, it's true. She speaks with such conviction and emotion, and the moonlight reflecting in her eyes with tears in it. So the next morning, Prabhupada called me in again. I'm going to tell you why he called in a minute. But he called me in again. And I said, well, I have to leave now, Prabhupada. I wanted to get out of there. I was getting nervous. Prabhupada said, don't talk leave, talk live. So I said to Prabhupada, you want me to stay longer? And he goes, yes. I said, okay, I'll stay. And then Prabhupada said those faithful words to me. Good boy. Just like you say to your pet dog. So when he said to me, good boy, I knew I was his disciple. That good boy. And I surrendered to him. Now, why did he call me in? I was doing the food relief, and every once in a while a devotee would run up to me and says, Prabhupada wants you again. So I said, I can't go, I'm doing food. No, Prabhupada called you, don't worry. So 3-4 times a day he called me in and I'd sit with him. And I thought I was alone with Prabhupada. I actually thought I was alone. And later on I found out all the devotees kind of crowd in from behind. But Prabhupada's presence was so kind of mystical for me. And I would sit and his feet were eye level. So I would just be staring at his feet. I didn't know to do that, but his feet were just at the level. So I would be staring at his feet. And I figured out years later why he kept calling me back in the room. He was saving me from all the devotees who were preaching to me. You should do this, you should do that, you should do this. He knew if his devotees got hold of me, they would tear me apart because I was the only one to preach to. So to save me, Prabhupada brought me in the Bhajan Kutir. So I would sit with him all day and I would have perfect questions, perfect answers. And that's the inner story behind the book. So I wanted to, I was told to speak on what is the story behind the book. So that's how I ended up there, accidentally getting the right verse from the Gita, and then having the devotees all preaching at me from every which way. So Prabhupada saved me and kept me in there with him, and Jamuna gave me mercy. And then the festival ended and I had to go back and teach. And there's many more aspects of the story, but I think that's the part I was asked to tell tonight. So we'll stop here and try to answer your questions. But that's the inner story. Yes?
Did he give any explanation on how it works?
It's in the book. The mystical moment was more, he explained to me a little bit, but it's in the book. I forgot exactly, so I don't want to say. But he said, his main point was the key is devotional service. If you're doing devotional service, then everything else is secondary. But I was thinking, if you're a bad person, then how can good things happen to you? You know, it's a question of theocracy in philosophy. We ask, often the question we ask is, why do bad things happen to good people? Like, for example, when the Nazis came, the question the Jews and the Catholics and the Gypsies who were persecuted by the Nazis would ask is, why do good things, why do bad things happen to good people? Why do bad things happen to good people? And also the other question, why do good things happen to bad people? You know? So Prabhupada was explaining some of those points, the philosophy behind that. Later on, I said I would tell one other story. When I was sitting in Calcutta the first time, and I saw that Prabhupada was not disturbed by people even arguing. I mean, they weren't loud or something. If they were loud, he probably would have been disturbed. But the fact they were arguing, he wasn't disturbed. And I thought about that, and then I asked Prabhupada a question. And when I asked this question, he gave an answer that to me said, oh, that makes sense. And later on, it was the one question that devotees all around the world were in shock over. I wasn't, because I didn't know anything. They were in shock. And they said, so I ask you this humbly, Prabhupada, but sometimes you get sick, but you're obviously free of karma. How does that happen? Because, you know, disease comes from bad karma, and, you know, you're free of karma. He said, I have committed a sinful act. I have taken too many disciples, and they don't follow very well. I said, oh, okay, now I know. You know, and the devotees, later on, when I went back to America, they were shocked by that. They were really shocked by that answer. To me, okay, maybe, now I know, but devotees had never heard that before. He said, I've done something sinful, I've taken too many disciples. And then he was only beginning. So, any other questions here? I know that many of you read the book, so you wanted to know a little about the background. So I don't mean to speak so long, but I wanted to give a little background. Yes? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. We met again various times. I was engaged to Bhakti before I went to India. And when I came back, I was a Hare Krishna, and she had never heard of a Hare Krishna in her entire life. Never heard of such a thing. And I would write letters to Bhakti when I was in the Peace Corps. But how do I put this? Well, I can't. I was stoned. There was a lot of marijuana in India. So I would write these letters that were kind of nuts. You know, and then after I met Prabhupada, he never told me to stop. He just told me how to stop. He didn't tell people what to do, he just told people how to do it. So as soon as he told me how, I knew what to do and I stopped. That was enough. I didn't want that anymore. I really didn't. And so I was writing Bhakti letters, but she thought I was still in some altered state of consciousness. So when I got off the plane, she had no idea I had become a Hare Krishna. It was a shock.
I couldn't find him for the first 15 minutes he was off the plane.
She couldn't recognize me. Dressed like this, I had a little beard and a bead bag, and I had new glasses, so I was just standing watching, see if she would catch me. Then her girlfriend said, there he is. She goes, no. Oh, no. And then we went to New York City. We went to New York City, and at the bus terminal, devotees, Devi Shakti, you know, Devi Shakti, and would always do Sankirtan. And a real saint. She and 3 other devotees were doing Sankirtan, and in those days they did Sankirtan in devotional clothes. And so I went up to them and I said, oh, hi, I just got back from India.
We're on our way to a Broadway show.
Yes, they're outside.
We're on our way to a Broadway show. We're dressed for a Broadway show. We're walking through Port Authority on our way to Broadway,
The bus terminal,
where the devotees were doing Sankirtan, and we hear, Peace Corps Bob! That's Peace Corps Bob! And gosh, some people from the Peace Corps. And I turn around, and there's a man standing in these orange robes with tilak, an inch thick. His head was so shiny you could see yourself, and he had socks and shoes that didn't match. And they're going, Haribol, it's Peace Corps Bob. And I'm thinking, get me away from this person. I had no idea who he was. That's his story.
They knew me. So then Prabhupada came to New York on July 4th, and Bhakti met Prabhupada for the first time, and that changed Bhakti's life. And Prabhupada and I talked a little, and then at various times, I really didn't want to ask him a lot anymore, because it already was there. But I would sometimes, when he'd come to New York twice, I'd get to drive him from the airport, because I had not a nice car, so I volunteered. And a few times Prabhupada would show me a lot of kindness. He would just, he would, everybody in devotional service needs something. So whatever we need, Krishna provides. I love asking devotees. My favorite question to ask, and I've asked several of you already, is, how did you come here? I think those stories are probably the best stories in the world. Because every story I hear is like almost a miracle. Whatever we needed, the right things came at the right thing, the taste was given. You know, one devotee, I just heard the story, I didn't know Dara's story. He was in jail, and somebody had a Gita in jail with him, and he read it, and became a devotee. Did you know that? That was Dara's story. He was a Jesus freak wearing these robes. And he got picked up and went to jail, and somebody had a Gita, and he read it. He said, this is really what I wanted. He's been a devotee now for 30 years. And so all these stories. So in a similar way, I was kind of philosophically minded for various reasons. I couldn't do sports as a child due to an injury. So in the neighborhood I grew up, you had to do sports, and I couldn't do any sports. So instead, I had to think. So Krishna arranged that I'd be in a position where I could ask my questions, because that's what I needed. Somebody else just needed a mountain of prasadam, somebody needed a good kirtan, whatever you needed. So, and also I needed, Prabhupada gave me a lot of affection. One time he gave me a hug, another time he had me sit by him. So he gave me affection. One time I got real proud and he totally ignored me, pretend I didn't exist. So Prabhupada, one thing he could do, and he could do the same thing all of you can do. That is, the face is a mirror of the mind. So he can understand your mind by your face. It's something we learn to do. And Vijay is expert on Sankirtan. Goes out to someone, I watch him, I see him, and he sees their face and he knows just the right thing to say to them. And invariably they take a book. I don't know how you do that, but I watch it. I don't know how you do it, but you do that. He sees their face and knows just what to say. So it's an art. Prabhupada was expert at that. So what other questions do you have? Any questions here? Any answers? The questions don't have to be perfect. Yes.
Can you also narrate some other stories from later on?
Yeah. I'll tell you one story that I think... I had a problem with the title of the book. Prabhupada named the book. He wrote me a letter. He says, we're going to publish this conversation and we're going to call it Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. Well, I have a trouble seeing anything I do as quite perfect. So, when the BBT was reprinting the book in England a year or so ago, you're in 2 years now, Vijay? Yeah. They asked me to write a new introduction. So I wanted to change the title, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. A funny thing happened to me on the way to the Ganges. But the BBT has no sense of humor. So, instead I wrote a new introduction, and I'll leave a copy of the book with the temple here. You probably don't have it. And I wrote a perfectly presumptuous title. Because the BBT focus group, they hired people to show the book to just anybody, not devotees, and say what you think. And one of the comments was, this title is too proud. So I wrote a perfectly presumptuous title. Why the title seems so inappropriate. Perfect this, perfect that. Sounds quite, you know, Taliban or right-wing Christian or something, you know, everything. But it actually is that way. Why? And I wrote about it. So the reader can see. Because the way to inquire is inquire submissively, render service, and ask questions. So I did do the perfect thing according to Gita. And how does one answer perfectly? In Brahma, by answering through the Brahma. So Prabhupada answered perfectly. I asked perfectly, and perfect question, perfect answers is the correct title. So I wrote a new introduction because I said, if I was bewildered, imagine just a reader being bewildered by the title. So we put that. I would suggest in all new editions. The BBT liked it a lot. I think it would be helpful to put the new introduction in. And then I put an updated conclusion. What other questions can I answer? Yeah, so what time is this supposed to finish? Yes, Mataji. Well, he did once when I got very proud after my initiation. I was so proud and treated me so kindly, so I went up to get my cookie. And I looked at him now, I'm finally initiated. It took me 5 years to get initiated. In those days, if you weren't initiated in 6 months, I wondered what was wrong with you. 3 months. 3 weeks, 3 months. And I took 5 years. I was chanting, you know, the rounds, following, but I had my reasons to wait. And so I thought now Prabhupada would be so glad to see me, because in the past, whenever he'd see me, he would give me like affection. And it was as if I didn't even exist. So he smashed me that way. There was that stare of looking at me and not seeing me. Probably to be quite expressive. We didn't have, after perfect questions, we didn't have that much dialogue. I would just go try to listen. I had already had my turn. So I didn't want to take up more. On July 4th in New Orleans and then in Denver, little conversations here and there. He had said, if you have any questions, he told me to ask certain disciples. And at that point, I felt if I'm just asking questions, it's really just to get his attention. I wanted to just to hear. So, but that one smash was very deep. Very subtle, probably very subtle. But it was a deep smash. The key to asking questions of Prabhupada is certain humility. We have to admit, it's in all our relationships. Bhakti was giving a seminar earlier for grahastas on husband and wife. And the key to husband and wife having good relationships is they ask each other questions. The key to a husband and wife having a good relationship is a certain amount of humility. If either one of them has pride, it really messes things up. So that's the key. So humility, there's a... Prabhupada is interesting. He was humble, yet proud. When he walked, I noticed when Prabhupada would walk, he would hold, you see it in the pictures, he would hold his head high. And I was walking in the morning on a morning walk with Prabhupada in Denver, and I saw him holding his head high. I was thinking, wow, he's so proud and so humble. Because Prabhupada had that self-esteem. He was so certain of himself. So he could be humble yet sure at the same time. Sometimes devotees, there's one story I love, one devotee went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, some of you of course know this story, Prabhupada, I am the most fallen, I am the most fallen. And Prabhupada said, you're not the most anything. We can be proud of Krishna. And Prabhupada was proud of his disciples, proud of his guru. But whenever he talked of his own relationship with his guru, his head bowed. His whole demeanor changed. Prabhupada was quite emotional. What do you say? Lakshmimoni, you can answer this a little. Prabhupada's humility and pride at the same time.
Prabhupada can be very strong. He was very he was very proud of the heritage that he was giving, and he was completely fixed in the Krishna consciousness that he was distributing. He was very proud of the philosophy and very sure of, he was completely convinced, as he said, he turned to the GBC one day and he said, "I'm convinced that Krishna is God. Are you convinced?" Jagdish said it was the heaviest moment in his life when Prabhupada asked that question. Are you convinced? Because Prabhupada was totally convinced. And that's why he was proud. Because he was so convinced that Krishna was God, that the disciplic succession of the truth that he was giving us was in fact the truth. And he had no qualms about it, so he was very proud. But whenever he spoke about himself, he was very humble, and he always attributed everything that he did to his spiritual master and to his connection with the disciplic succession. He always attributed whatever success he had to his relationship with his spiritual master and his connection with the disciplic succession. So
Jagadish told me this one wonderful story. Many of you know Jagadish. And he said he was, one time, Prabhupada said, "I want you to move the bed in that room." It was alone. Jagadish said, "Well, I can do it, I'll just drag it." Prabhupada said, "Just move the bed." So he moved the bed that made a screeching noise, because he was alone. One person couldn't do it. And then Prabhupada said, "Why are you making so much noise?" Jagadish was so upset. I'm just doing what he said, and now I've upset him. So upset. And later on, Prabhupada called him back and said, "Don't worry." He said, "Old men get grouchy." Yeah. So, were you there? Excuse me?
I was around.
Yeah. Do you know that tell the story, right? Yeah. And Bhakti True Swami tells the same story. So Prabhupada was very human. Very human person. So, what other questions do you have? Won't promise perfect answers, but give it our shot. Any other questions on any topic whatsoever for me, Bhakti, or Lakshmimoni? Anything you always wanted to know but were afraid to ask? Anything you want to know but were afraid of? So you tell something.
Oh! Because once you get started, then one thing leads to another, and it goes on and on and on. I'll just tell one story. In Dallas, 1974, Srila Prabhupada was there. Someone had asked, "Did Prabhupada ever blast you, or Prabhupada ever?" So I got yelled at by Prabhupada. And actually once, Shrutikirti Prabhu and Harisari Prabhu, they were in Ljubljana and they were talking, they were sharing Prabhupada stories. And so they had a competition. Who got yelled at the most by Srila Prabhupada? So they were going back and forth, telling different times when they had gotten yelled at by Srila Prabhupada. And then Harisari told a story about how he was up in, I don't know how many of you have been to Prabhupada's house in Vrindavan? And how many of you know that Prabhupada's house has a second floor? Yeah, okay, so Prabhupada's house has a second floor. Usually when you go to Prabhupada's house, only the downstairs is open, the upstairs hardly anyone knows about. But actually, before Prabhupada got ill, he lived upstairs, and he worked upstairs. And his bathroom was downstairs. So Harisari Prabhu brought him something upstairs. And in India, when you close the door, you slide a bolt. There's no, most of the doors don't open from both sides. You either open and close it from one side, or you open and close it from the other. So out of force of habit, when Harisari Prabhu left the room, Prabhupada's room, he slid the bolt from the outside. He locked Prabhupada in his room. And so after some time, someone came running. Harisari, Prabhupada's looking for you. Prabhupada's looking for you. So he came back and he thought, and he came up immediately. He said, Prabhupada's screaming for you out the window. So he realized, oh no, I locked him in. So he ran upstairs and unlocked the door. Prabhupada had to go to the bathroom. He couldn't go to the bathroom because he was locked in the room. And he did the same thing, actually, that he did to you. He just walked right by him and didn't say a word. Harisar said that it's worse when it's easier if he yells at you. You know, you kind of get it over with and it's finished. But he didn't. He just walked by and he didn't say anything. Later on, it was rectified, or they made up. But then in Odessa, a couple of years ago, I was again with those two, and they were telling stories, and so I told this story, and they agreed that I was the biggest idiot. So at that time, Shrutikirti said to Harisar, you won. But this time they both said to me, I won. So I was in Dallas, and I had moved there 1 year after the deities of Radha Kalachandji had been installed. And I don't know how many of you have seen pictures of Radha Kalachandji or seen the deities in person, but Kalachandji is a very big deity. He's got a very big head. He's a very old style. He was actually taken from a museum in Jaipur by one of my god sisters. And he was very traditionally carved, very different. And Prabhupada originally, when they received the deities, Prabhupada had told them that he should have conch shell eyes, like the eyes that Radharaman had, made carved out of conch shell. But the devotees decided that that was too weird. He was just too big, and they couldn't look at that. It was too hard for them. So they didn't do it. They didn't put the eyes on Kalachandji the way Prabhupada had asked. And they had put these eyes in a box, and they had put them in the Pujari room, so when I moved to Dallas, I was taking over the deity worship there, and I was cleaning. Prabhupada was there. And so I found this box, and it had these huge, very big conch shell eyes, and I asked somebody what was going on, and they explained to me that they had originally bought them because Prabhupada said he wanted the deities to have conch shell eyes, but they didn't do it. So the deities had been installed now for a year, and I went up to Srila Prabhupada's room, and there were many people there. Jayatirtha Prabhu was there, and Jagdish was there, and others. And I said to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, I found these eyes, and I heard that you wanted Kalachandji to have conch shell eyes. Prabhupada didn't really answer, he just went, And I said, so Srila Prabhupada, I just want you to know that if you want Kalachandji to have conch shell eyes, I'll put them on. And he said, no, Kalachandji's eyes are fine, just the way they are. So then I thought, well, maybe he didn't understand what I said. So I repeated it again. I said, Srila Prabhupada, but if you wanted it, because it was like, to me, it was like, I couldn't believe that he had said he wanted it and they didn't do it. It just, what is that? So I said again, I said, well, but I heard that you wanted Kalachandji to have conch shell eyes, Srila Prabhupada, and if you want that, I'll put the eyes on Kalachandji. Prabhupada said, no, Kalachandji's eyes are fine, just the way they are. So 3 strikes and you're out. And I still was like thinking maybe he just didn't understand. So I said, Srila Prabhupada, but if it's your desire, and then he cut me off and he said, I'm Srila Prabhupada and I'm telling you what I want. Kalachandji's eyes are fine, just the way they are. It's like I kept saying, Prabhupada, but I heard you said, and he said, I'm Prabhupada, and I'm telling you what I said.
I told this last night at a function, so some of you may have heard this story. It was the first time that I got to meet Srila Prabhupada face to face. I started coming to the temple with my husband, so was it April 72? Yeah. And it was pretty unusual. I was a Jewish girl from a small town, very protected. I never did drugs, never drank, never smoked. I was a goody two-shoes, as we say in English. I lived with my parents. I was very small town. So I go to the Hare Krishna temple, and the wafts of incense, the smells, the cooking aromas were very different. The way people were dressed was very different. And people knew Bob Cohen. They knew Peace Corps Bob Cohen, and they couldn't understand why Bob Cohen's fiancée didn't have the same enthusiasm as he did. And so people were telling me what I needed to do and how I needed to do it and when I needed to do it, and if I didn't do it, I was a rascal and a this and a that and the other. So needless to say, I didn't want to go back. So every Sunday, my husband would get ready to go to the temple, and he would say, I'm leaving in 20 minutes. He never preached to me. He never told me I had to go. Nothing. He left it up to me. I'm not going. He'd say, okay, I'm leaving in 5 minutes, and just want to let you know. I'd say, okay. He'd say, okay, I'll see you later. All right, I'll go. So I wound up going every single Sunday, and every single Sunday I found something else wrong I didn't like about this religion. But I have to tell you something. The one thing that I could not negate was the philosophy. The philosophy that I was raised in, Judaism, did not satisfy me. And when we were, this is even before we were coming to the temple, we would go to different Jewish temples and try and find something that fit for us, and we never could find it. And when we were studying together the philosophy, I couldn't negate. The philosophy answered all of my questions. It was just the people I had trouble with. So July 4th, 1972 came, and Srila Prabhupada came to New York. And one devotee had arranged for both he and I to visit with Prabhupada. So as I was about to enter the room, the devotee said to me, and by the way, when you go in, you must offer obeisances. And I'm like, I don't offer my obeisances to anyone, you know? It's not how I was raised. It's not what I do. So I walked into the room. Prabhupada was sitting at a small desk. I walked all the way to the end of the room, very long room, and I sat down. And the only people that were in the room were Prabhupada at the very center, in the back, my husband on the side, and many sannyasis off to the other side. And Prabhupada looks at me and he says, very kindly, so you are interested in Krishna consciousness. And I looked at Prabhupada, I knew he was talking to me, and I couldn't understand a word he said. I'd never heard anybody from India speak before. He had a very thick accent. So Prabhupada, in his infinite compassion, looks at my husband and says, so you'll translate? I wanted to melt into the floor. Prabhupada was so nice. He was so kind. And he allowed me to ask questions, and they're in the book, and they're not perfect questions, I assure you. And a young woman came in during Prabhupada's discussion, and she had a very large bowl filled with these round balls that looked to me like golf balls. And she put them on the desk in front of Prabhupada. I find this very curious because I have no idea what they are. So Prabhupada calls me up to this. He says, come, come. I understood that. I came up, I stood up in front of the desk, and he says to me, hold out your hand. So I hold out my left hand. Prabhupada says, no, your other hand. So I hold out my right hand. And he takes one of the balls and puts them in my hand. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. And I'm thinking, this is big, and it's wet, and so I look at Prabhupada. It's obvious to Prabhupada I have no idea what to do. So Prabhupada motions to me like this. I'm thinking to myself, you have to be kidding. How am I going to get this gigantic? So, pop it into my mouth, and if anyone knows a really good rough school big deal. My eyes must have bulged out because I laughed And so then it became time for Srila Prabhupada to leave and go to the airport. And so everyone was filing out of the room. And I wanted to tell Prabhupada how much I appreciated his compassion on me, his non-judgmental of me. And I waited to be the last person. Now, let me stop here and just give you a little bit of a background. Prior to meeting Prabhupada, I would never say Hare Krishna. People would say, oh, Hare Krishna, Bhakti, so-and-so. And I would say, hi. They would say, chant Hare Krishna. I'd say, no. You're not going to make me. I was a tough cookie. I was like, you're not going to make me do this. So as I am the last person to leave the room, I turned to Prabhupada, I folded my hands and I said, Hare Krishna. And without a moment's hesitation, Prabhupada said, Jai. So I knew that he knew that I had never said Hare Krishna before, so that's awesome.
Any other questions? Questions here? Yes.
So many nice stories. Somebody write about this?
Some of these are in the Prabhupada Memory Series. I've been told I should write something more. Probably I should. Before old age catches up with me. Yeah, I know there's something needs to be written. More of this needs to be written. Yadavar has produced a series. Some of this is on there now. So I will say the last time I saw Prabhupada, 1977, Prabhupada passed away on November 11th, and in October, around October 14th, yeah. Were you there for the conference on Life Comes from Life? Right? Yeah, about 3 weeks before Prabhupada left, there was a conference on Life Comes from Life. It's the first international conference. Sri Damodar has done follow-ups. So that was organized by Sri Damodar, Brahmachari, then Sadaputa, and other ISKCON scientists were presenting papers on Life Comes from Life, Prabhupada's theme. And I was presenting, I'm a geologist by training. So I was presenting a paper on certain evolutionary theory. It was a paper Sadaputa and I had worked on together. And at the conference there were also some quite distinguished scientists. This was held in the Vrindavan Gurukula courtyard. And Prabhupada was too sick to go, so every day he would call us into his room for the Sankirtan reports. And he would ask us, what were the arguments they gave and what were the arguments you gave? He wanted the Sankirtan scores of what was going on. And he would listen very carefully to the arguments. One time he called us in and Krišna Maharaj said, Prabhupada, your scientists are here. Prabhupada's eyesight had virtually failed. He could hardly see at that point. His kidney failed. The consequence is that the eyesight becomes almost blind. So Tamaji said, your scientists are here and they're wearing suits and ties. You know, it was Vrindavan. We were wearing suits and ties for the conference. So Prabhupada said, oh, get them chairs. Sri Damodar said, no, Prabhupada, we're your disciples, we'll sit on the floor. He said, no, they're in suits and ties, we have to sit in chairs. Of course, there weren't enough chairs. So on 2 chairs, 2 of us sat. The others of us went like this. Prabhupada didn't see very well, so what else could we do? And when I first got to Vrindavan, I arrived with a tray of rishis. So he was GBC. So that was my good fortune because I got right in to see Prabhupada. And we got in. Prabhupada was so thin. You remember that? It was just like, you know, we knew Prabhupada as vigorous. He, on morning walks, would walk faster than most of us were capable of. He was a very vigorous person. Yeah, he did. And then he was so super thin. Yeah, you know, like, wow. Because he hadn't eaten in 6 months, right? Very little. It's one of the classical symptoms of kidney failure. And so we walked in. Then he could still see. Then a week later, his sight started getting much weaker, and he saw the shocked look at our faces. And he said to Atreya, he started laughing. He said, "I've been telling you, Atreya, that I'm not this body, and you're not this body, and now my body is gone. I'm living in the bones. Will you finally believe me?" And Prabhupada made a joke out of his body. You know, he just thought it was pretty funny that we were shocked. And he started laughing and making a joke. So that's the story from beginning to end, from A to Z. There's a few details in between I left out. That'll be for another time. So any other questions? If not, I have a brief comment to make. Brief comment. I've been quite impressed by Slovenia. The devotees here are, to every last person, particularly sweet. The people in the street are particularly nice. I feel like I entered a fairy tale and dropped into a place that's unreal. So it's I've been told that it's a wonderful yatra, but this is a place where even your president is vegetarian. So I think this is a wonderful place to preach. You're all very fortunate to be here. You're all fortunate to be touched by Prabhupada. When you join ISKCON, you get a guru with a money-back warranty. Just like when you buy something, you get a warranty. So when you join ISKCON, your guru has a warranty with it, and the warranty is given by Srila Prabhupada. So whatever happens, and I know there's been difficulties that have happened. One of my immediate neighbors and friend is Harikesh. So I know that the yatra has gone through various difficulties and various problems. But when you're part of ISKCON, you always have Prabhupada's warranty behind everything. Prabhupada's guarantee, double your karma back. So I'm very pleased to be here, and this is a really special place. And I think we have a great opportunity for introducing Krishna consciousness in a really special way. And so I want to declare to all of you that Yad Sam Slovinich. Thank you very much.
It's been like the Kennedy saying, yeah.
Exactly. I stole it from them.
Yeah.
Ask not what ISKCON can do for you, ask what you can do for ISKCON.
So basically we want to give you a Panchatattva picture. There's something written in the back in the theme of travels.
Thank you very much. This is very nice. I'm touched.
And well, this is a small thing you have to open together. And, so Bhahmatirtha and Mother Bhakti said that they're going to come again for a month here.
Memory of Blair. Haridanand Raj said to me, "You must see Blair." So Mukunda did it. Mukunda was supposed to present his shirt as his gift, but I took away his thunder.
So if anybody wants to get a signed copy of their Rajesh, or perfect questions, perfect answers, Bhahmatirtha will sign out, and the value of the copy will spiritually increase.
And the cost is $2.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I have here, this is the new edition of Perfect Questions. That was a new introduction. And I'm writing it to all the wonderful devotees in the beautiful land of Slovenia, yours in service to Lord Krishna. So this is for your library. And I brought you, those who might know Kalikanta is a brilliant poet. Brilliant. He's the president of the Krišna Center now in Gainesville, where I am. And Gainesville is near Alachua, which everyone has heard of. But at that center, Kalikanta is an old Prabhupada disciple and a dear friend. And he runs it down. He took the Gita and wrote it as a poem in modern rhyming English. It's beautifully done. So I want to present this to your library also. And who's the temple president? Oh, there. So, temple president. Yeah, no, there you are. Yeah. So these are for you. I present that to you. And and thank you. Anyway, it's really, it's just a special honor to be here. I also want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing in America. 2 programs. So you'll see some good things going on, in spite of the rumors. At the University of Florida, we have a campus. The campus is 50,000 students. I think the same as yours. And we've been distributing prasadam since Prabhupada came there in 1971. He gave the instruction, he spoke at the campus, and said you should distribute prasadam. So Amarendra started distributing prasadam shortly thereafter. Several million places later, we're distributing prasadam 5 days a week to the students in the same place. And if I told you the number of plates we're distributing every day, you won't believe me, but it's 1,000. 1,000, 5 days a week for about 10 months a year. And each student pays $3 for it. So the students all pay for it. And it used to be a few years ago, it was like 200 plates, 300 was a lot. Our biggest day we did, the last day, every Wednesday is always spaghetti day. So the way devotees eat, you would think Lord Chaitanya, actually if you're in Italy, not Bengal. But everybody likes spaghetti, so the last day of the semester was spaghetti day. And we always have more students come. This time we had 1,370. So that was a record one day total. And we begin again in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We begin again. So any of you who are visiting Florida, you should come to see that program. The other service I'm involved in, and Kalikanta, whose book I left, is running that program now. And Rutava Swami, some of you know, is overall behind the scenes on that. The other program I'm personally involved in, that's dear to my heart, and some of your devotees are trained in, is ISKCON Resolve. ISKCON Resolve is the internal organization of ISKCON for us resolving conflicts internally and of offering service to others. And I was trained in the first mediation class by Raja Bihari, and then I went on to be trained as a by the court system. And 2 of your devotees, Marco and Shana, just got their introduction course in mediation, and hopefully they'll continue their training. But the idea is when there's disputes between couples, Bhakti does that, and there's disputes between parties, individuals, not couples, or between organizations. Many of us in ISKCON Resolve are there. We want ISKCON to be known as the peacemakers. People all over the world can come to us when there are disputes and know that we are ones who can help resolve conflict. But there's a saying, charity begins at home. So we have to first be peaceful among ourselves. So there is facility, you're getting trained mediators, so there's any kind of disputes in nature. Kali, disputes will always arise, they must. If they don't arise, then everyone's sleeping. And it's very difficult. Managing in ISKCON, as you know, is hard. Because everyone above you complains and everyone below you complains. It's like being caught in a fight. So we know it's a hard thing. And the idea of ISKCON Resolve is to help the management by when there's disputes, they can send it someplace else. So I just wanted you to be aware of the service that's going on. That's my primary service now. I've done other things. We also have a center at the University of Florida for Hindu Studies that is in collaboration with the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. And last year, I was proud my dear friend was there for 1 year, and that was a year of great ecstasy for Bhakti 9, and that was Krišna Prabhu. He taught at the university, and Radhi Raman taught, and there are 4 professors at major university, and every professor who was teaching anything about Hinduism was a practicing Vaishnava at a major university, on the payroll of the university. So that was a good moment. And having Krishna Kshetra, we would have dinner at our house once a week and bhajan once a week. It was like heaven. So, but I know he's not far from all of you because he's in Croatia and Serbia. So I just wanted to share with you the evening news. The evening news, and that's the way the world is tonight. Thank you very much.